Iran seems to have kept forth another demand. And this demand is of 24 billion US dollars, and now it is linking it to the peace deal, saying that the talks have been deadlocked and over frozen funds, and it now wants the assets to be released. Now has, as far as Iran is concerned, issued a warning to President Trump saying that the ball is now in his court, and Iran is now seeking the release of the frozen assets and the removal of the sanctions, which it says for decades has hampered its economic growth, saying that otherwise we will expand the war. That is the threat that is now coming in from Iran and beyond Gulf. So Iran is now flagging strikes beyond the Gulf, despite as far as the naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz and of Iranian ports that continues to exist on part of US military. Iran has also been retaliating in its own way. Recently, it carried out counter strikes at the US bases once again in Bahrain and Kuwait. However, America had too been carrying out strikes in the name of self-defense at key islands near the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this seems to be another development as far as the talks still continue to be deadlocked. Let's connect with Shinjoy on this. So, Shinjoy, how do we understand President Trump was indicating that a peace deal over the weekend may be a possibility?
Everyone will be happy if the peace deal actually works out. But so far, we still have no peace deal because there are several problems here. Here, the Iranians are demanding $24 billion as damages for the war. Now, is this something America will ever pay? We don't know. But the chances of President Trump agreeing to pay $24 billion to Iran for bombing, for the bombing it has faced over those 39 days, the chances are very dim. Also, Iran wants the same issues are still there. Iran wants the sanctions lifted. Iran wants the naval blockade lifted. America wants the nuclear dust, 460 kilos of it, and also the Strait of Hormuz to be opened. But at this point, there seems to be a deadlock. And that deadlock has been going on for a long while.
Well, close to 100 days, what we are now looking at as far as this conflict is concerned, despite a fragile ceasefire somehow still holding, we are looking at still attacks and certain incidents of retaliation that continues. Now, there is another reaction coming in from President Trump's side, Shinjoy. Let's break that for our viewers. Because he says that Iran has not agreed to a deal to end the war now in its fourth month because they are strong and they are proud. Now, President Trump says that the Iranian leaders have not yet reached a deal with the US to end the ongoing war because they are strong and proud, but ultimately they have no choice except to accept the agreements on part of the terms and conditions which are set by the United States. Saying that he never thought, Iran will be going to such an extent, while the president says that during an interview, his remarks that have come as US and Iranian leaders have been negotiating to end the war, which has now entered its fourth month last week. So, Shinjoy, the two nations coming to agree for a ceasefire, which has been extended several times, but despite the recent tensions that have flared up, the strikes near the Strait of Hormuz have still continued.
Yes, CENTCOM says it shot down a few Iranian drones. Now, this kind of thing has been happening for a while. Occasionally, you have this burst of aggression. But at the end of the day, luckily for the world, the ceasefire continues. But the Strait of Hormuz is still stuck. All these problems that the war has caused still continue. Oil supplies are down. Oil prices are up. So as a result, the region is suffering, the world is suffering. About that, there is no doubt. And at this point, we don't know how this will pan out because President Trump says that America is proud and so on. At the end of the day, is there a ceasefire or isn't there a ceasefire? There is a ceasefire. Fine. But there is no end of the war in sight. There does not appear to be any kind of commitment by both sides to arrive at a final decision. on what has to be done, because both sides, after those 39 days of fighting, declared victory. Both sides set terms. And when both sides set terms, you found that the terms were naturally very different from each other. And there has been no movement, really, no forward movement towards a solution.
Absolutely, because the ongoing conflict has led Iran months ago to shutter the Strait of Hormuz. The crucial maritime passageway for the oil tankers, and the strait's closure has led to soaring oil prices globally and surging gas prices in the U.S. That has also put a lot of pressure on Washington, especially on President Trump. Now, there are reports as far as when it comes to, as Srinjoy pointed out, to sudden burst of aggression, because the U.S. military says that it has shot down 4 Iranian drones that were launched towards the Strait of Hormuz and then struck some IRGC's coastal surveillance radar sites in response, raising the risk to a shaky ceasefire as Trump administration is now ramping up pressure on Iran. Because the attack on the drones posed as an immediate threat to regional maritime traffic, this seems to be an explanation coming in from the U.S. Central Command as to why the military seems to be enforcing a blockade on the Iranian ports. Let's go back to Srinjoy on this. So, Srinjoy, the chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz that still continues, natural gas and global oil shipments that has been affected. And these are defense strike or self-defense strikes is something which U.S. now seems to be claiming with the downing of the drones.
America says it downed the drones in self-defense. Now, what has been happening in these days of ceasefire, and as you rightly said, that we are approaching 100 days, there have been a few isolated bursts of aggression from both sides, and it has led to some destruction. But the ceasefire holds, as you rightly said. But for how long? That's the first question. And if there is going to be a settlement, what will the terms be? These are things which are not clear as yet. And it's hard to say how people will agree with the terms that have been set. America wants certain things. Iran isn't agreeable. Iran wants certain things. America wants it is not agreeable. So under those circumstances, how can there be an agreement?
Well, that is a question there because, there are indications suddenly that may reach to a peace deal, and then suddenly the talks go back to square one, because despite the attacks raising new concerns that the ceasefire could collapse, President Trump, however, says that the situation in Iran seems to be going on quite well. So again, contradictory statements that has been coming in. Let's now talk about Kuwait here, because Kuwait also seems to be under fire as far as recent retaliation is concerned, and air raid sirens continue to sound across the country as it has come under another wave of Iranian drone and missile attacks. Now, Kuwait's military says that its air defenses are actively intercepting hostile missile and drone attacks, and these strikes are believed to be a response to the recent attacks in southern Iran amid escalating tensions involving the United States in the region. So this seems to be a retaliation, Srinjoy, that Iran seems to be carrying out. Once again, U.S. bases have come under attack. We've seen the retaliation happen in Kuwait and also in Bahrain.
This has been going on for a while. And whenever there has been an attack by the Americans have struck, the Iranians have struck, the Iranians have struck again, the Americans have hit back. This has been going on. So this is not really the fog of war. You can call it the fog of peace. But yes, some attacks have been made, presumably on American bases in Kuwait, but they have been repelled, is what the Americans say. So this kind of isolated fighting has been going on for a while. Now, how long they will last, whether they will lead to anything worse, we don't know as yet. But those are worrying signs, as you would imagine.
Well, these are worrying signs. I mean, as far as the issue in the Gulf region that has remained peaceful so far, there has been sporadic incidents of violence and retaliation that has now been reported from the Iranian side. Thank you very much, Ranjoy, for joining us here on the broadcast. It seems that the peace deal is still not signed, not being signed as far as this weekend is concerned. So when we talk about all the developments that are taking place, what can you do to catch the news on the move? Well, Times Play, which has you covered, the all-in-one OTT streaming platform, which is developed by the Times Network, that uniquely blends premium digital video entertainment with real-time news broadcasting. So you can catch your favorite news channel on Times Play, which is available on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store.